Scorpio. There's a kind of silence that only appears right before something inside you shifts, and it feels different from the silence you're used to. Not empty, not heavy in the way you've carried before. This one feels aware, like something is watching you from within, waiting for you to finally notice it. Maybe it found you in a quiet moment you didn't plan for. Maybe it was there when you woke up before the world did, when your chest felt full in a way you couldn't quite explain. Not pain, not exactly. More like something pressing gently from the inside, asking to be felt instead of pushed back down. And the strange part is, this isn't new. Whatever is rising now, you've brushed against it before. In passing thoughts you didn't follow, in feelings you quickly translated into something more manageable, in moments where you almost said something honest, but chose silence instead. It has been there, steady, patient, waiting for you to be ready, in a way that has nothing to do with time and everything to do with truth. Around April 1st and 2nd, something subtle begins to open. Not loudly, not in a way others would notice, but you will. It feels like a quiet door inside you, loosening on its hinges. And when it does, what comes through may move you more than you expect. If tears come, they won't ask for permission. They won't need explanation. They will arrive the way truth does when it's finally recognized, not as something new, but as something that has always belonged to you. And in that moment, you may realize you weren't waiting for answers. You were waiting to trust what you already knew. This isn't a message being given to you. This is something in you, being confirmed. So if something is already stirring as you read this, something quiet, something undeniable, you don't have to explain it. You don't have to fully understand it yet. Just let yourself feel it as it is, without reshaping it into something safer. If that feeling is there, even faintly, you can anchor it now. I feel it rising. You didn't start out this way. There was a time when what you felt moved more freely, before you learned how to hold it, shape it, contain it. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Not in one moment, not from one event, but through repetition. Through small, quiet adjustments you made without even realizing it. You began to notice that not everything you felt had a place to land. So you adapted. You learned how to pause before reacting, how to read a room before speaking, how to take something heavy and make it look manageable from the outside. And over time, that became more than a choice. It became a way of being. Scorpio, you didn't just carry emotions, you became skilled at carrying them. That's the part most people don't see. They see your composure, your control, the way you seem to hold yourself together, even when things around you feel uncertain. But what they don't see is the constant internal calibration, the way you measure what to say, what to keep, what to process alone. The way your first instinct isn't to release, but to contain. Not because you want to hide, because somewhere in you it made sense to do it this way. Maybe it felt safer to handle things on your own. Maybe you realized early on that not everyone knew how to hold what you felt without reshaping it, minimizing it, or misunderstanding it. So instead of risking that, you turned inward. You became your own processor, your own translator, your own place to land. And you got good at it. So good that even when something hurts, it doesn't always show. Even when something lingers, it stays beneath the surface. Even when something wants to be released, there's a part of you that tightens slightly, just enough to keep it from spilling over. You don't just feel deeply, you manage depth. You hold it, you organize it, you revisit it quietly, in your own time, in your own way. And from the outside, it can look like strength, stability, control. But inside, it's a constant holding. And what's subtle, what's easy to miss, is how this pattern begins to shape what you allow yourself to experience. When holding becomes natural, releasing starts to feel unfamiliar. When silence becomes safe, expression begins to feel like exposure. So you keep going like this, not questioning it, not naming it, just living inside it, until something begins to shift. Not loudly, not all at once, but enough that the weight you've learned to carry starts to feel different. Not heavier, just harder to ignore. And that's where something new begins to surface. It doesn't happen in the middle of noise. It happens when everything around you is still, when the room is quiet, the air barely moving, and the world feels like it has stepped just far enough away for you to finally hear what's underneath. You open your eyes, not fully awake, not fully asleep, and something in your chest feels different. Not sharp, not overwhelming, just present. You glance at the clock. 3:02 a.m., maybe 3:17. The exact number doesn't matter, but the feeling does. It's that strange hour where your body feels softer, less guarded, like the layers you carry during the day have loosened without asking for permission. And then it comes. Not as a clear thought, not as a full memory, more like a thread, something familiar brushing against your awareness. A name, a moment, a version of you that lived through something and never fully let it leave. It doesn't rush in, it lingers, just enough that you can't push it back to where it came from. You try to shift your body, adjust your breathing, maybe even close your eyes again. But it stays. Because this time, it wants to be felt. There's a quiet pull in your chest, almost like something is rising from deeper than you usually go. And what makes it unfamiliar isn't the emotion itself. You've felt this before. It's the fact that you're noticing it differently now. You're not immediately organizing it, not translating it into something easier to hold. You're just there with it. And that alone changes everything. For a moment, it might feel unsettling, like something is slipping out of place, like the control you've relied on is softening at the edges. But if you stay with it just a little longer, you begin to sense something else underneath that initial discomfort. Clarity. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet knowing that this isn't happening randomly. This isn't your mind wandering or your emotions getting the best of you. This is something in you reaching the surface because the space is finally there for it to exist. Because you are ready in a way you weren't before. Not more perfect, not more healed in some visible way, just more open. More able to sit with what you feel without immediately reshaping it. And that's why it's happening now. The memory, the feeling, the presence of it. It's not here to pull you backward. It's here because something that stayed unfinished inside you has found the moment where it can finally be seen without resistance. So you stay there, in that quiet hour, feeling something you once carried without looking at. And for the first time, you don't reach to contain it. You let it exist. And somewhere in that stillness, something deeper begins to take form, leading you closer to a truth that has been waiting far longer than this moment. There's a moment, and it doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself as a breakthrough or feel like something new entering your life. It feels quieter than that, almost familiar, like stepping into a room you've been in before, only this time you actually look around instead of passing through. And that's when it lands, not as information, not as a conclusion, as recognition. You sit with the feeling a little longer, and something inside you begins to align, not in a dramatic way, but in a way that feels exact. Like pieces that were slightly out of place are now resting where they were always meant to be. And in that stillness, a thought surfaces, soft but undeniable. I knew this. Not just now, before. You've known it in the way your body tightened around certain people, in the hesitation you couldn't explain, in the quiet pull away from something that looked right on the surface but never felt fully settled within you. You've known it in fragments, in flashes, in instincts you gently overrode because they didn't come with proof. And that's where the real shift begins to reveal itself, because it was never about a lack of knowing, it was about trust. Somewhere along the way, you learn to place more weight on what could be explained, confirmed, or validated by something outside of you. You learn to question the subtle signals, the ones that didn't raise their voice, didn't argue for attention, didn't demand to be followed. The quiet ones, the ones that simply knew. So you paused, you reconsidered, you gave things more time, more chances, more space to become something they were never going to become. Not because you were unaware, but because you were waiting for your knowing to become undeniable. And now, here it is. Not louder, just clearer. It doesn't need to convince you anymore. It doesn't need evidence or agreement. It sits within you with a kind of calm certainty that feels almost unfamiliar, not because it's new, but because you're finally allowing it to exist without interruption. This is the part of you that has always been present, the part that doesn't rush, the part that doesn't chase clarity because it already holds it, the part that watches, senses, and understands long before your mind catches up. You could call it intuition, you could call it awareness, you could call it something deeper that has been walking beside you the entire time. And now, you're walking with it, not questioning it, not reshaping it, just recognizing it. And as that recognition settles into your body, something else begins to shift, not in what you know, but in what you're willing to do with it, leading you quietly toward a point where holding on no longer feels the same. It builds quietly at first, not as something dramatic, not as something you can clearly name, but as a pressure gathering in places you used to manage so well. The same thoughts return, the same feeling circles back, but this time, it lingers. It doesn't settle the way it used to. You try, almost instinctively, to do what you've always done, to hold it, to make sense of it, to give it time. But something in you responds differently now. There's a pause, a space between the feeling rising and your ability to contain it. And in that space, you notice something unfamiliar. Not the emotion itself, but your relationship to it. The grip feels looser, the structure feels less certain. Part of you still reaches for control, still tries to organize everything into something manageable. But another part, quieter, deeper, has already stepped back. It's no longer holding things together the way it used to. And that's when the tension sharpens. You feel it in your chest, in your breath. And then a question rises naturally. What am I still holding on to? The answer doesn't come in words, it comes as weight, a familiar heaviness carried for so long it became part of who you thought you were, the one who stays, who understands, who keeps going even when it hurts. But now, that version of you feels distant, not wrong, just no longer yours. And this is where everything shifts. You don't let go because you want to. You let go because something in you can't keep holding the same way anymore. The effort becomes heavier than the weight itself, so something softens. Not dramatically, not all at once, but enough. This isn't collapse. This is the quiet end of holding. A breath moves differently. Your chest feels lighter. Something that was tightly held begins to open, not because you forced it, but because you stopped reinforcing it. You didn't lose strength, you just stopped using it to endure. And whatever you've been carrying now sits at the edge of your awareness, no longer anchored the same way. And if you stay with that feeling, something unexpected appears. Relief. Soft. Subtle. Real. I release it now. And in that quiet, something new begins to take shape. It doesn't feel like a single decision. It feels like space. A quiet kind of space that lingers after something has already loosened its grip. You move through your thoughts, through your day, and notice how certain things no longer pull you in the same way. The urge to revisit, to replay, to go back and feel it again. It softens. Not because you forced it to stop, because something in you no longer follows it. And that's where this shift begins to take shape in a new way. Letting go starts to feel less like something you do and more like something you allow. It shows up in small moments, when a memory passes through without anchoring, when a name comes up and your body stays steady, when you realize you could go back into that familiar emotional loop, but you don't. Not out of resistance, out of clarity. You begin to see that what once held you wasn't just the situation itself, it was the returning, the revisiting, the quiet habit of stepping back into the same emotional space again and again until it felt like part of who you were. And now, something different is happening. You're still aware, you still remember, you still feel, but you're not re-entering it in the same way. There's a subtle boundary forming, not sharp, not defensive, just present. A sense that your energy has a direction now, and it isn't turning backward. This starts to change how you relate to everything, especially in love, because you begin to recognize how often you stayed connected through depth alone, through intensity, through history, through what something once meant. And now, there's a quieter question underneath your connections. Does this meet me where I am now? Not where you were, not where you hoped it would go, but where you are. In this version of yourself that no longer needs to hold everything together to keep something alive. And from that place, your choices begin to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily. You choose what feels clear. You stay where there is reciprocity. You step back where your energy feels pulled instead of met. And in doing so, you start to understand something deeper. Letting go isn't about losing something. It's about no longer returning to what you've already released. And as that understanding settles into the way you move, the way you choose, the way you relate, you begin to notice something else quietly changing alongside it. Something in your external world starting to respond. You start to notice it in ways that don't ask for attention, a response that comes through after a long silence, an opportunity that feels familiar, almost like something that once passed you by is circling back, only now it meets you differently. Not with urgency, not with pressure, but with space. And what stands out isn't just what's returning, it's how you receive it. There was a time when moments like this would have pulled something immediate out of you, a need to secure it, to respond quickly, to make sure it didn't slip away again. But now, there's a pause. Not hesitation, awareness. You look at what's in front of you, and instead of asking, "What if this is my only chance?" something else rises. Does this actually align with me now? That shift changes everything. Because what's happening here isn't about the universe suddenly deciding to reward you. It's not a delayed gift finally arriving. It's something more precise than that. The energy that once moved toward you is finding its way back. And this time, it meets a version of you that knows how to hold it without grasping. Especially when it comes to money, value, and opportunity. You begin to see how your relationship with receiving has been shaped, not just by what you've experienced, but by what you've believed you had to accept. The compromises, the overextension, the quiet agreement to take what was available rather than what truly matched your worth. Now that pattern loosens. You don't reach the same way. You don't say yes from the same place. There's a steadiness in you that allows things to come closer before you decide if they belong in your space. And that's where the real shift lives. Because opportunities aren't just appearing, you're meeting them differently. You're choosing from clarity instead of fear, from alignment instead of urgency. And that changes the outcome before anything even begins. So when something arrives, an offer, a conversation, a chance to step into something new, you feel into it rather than rush toward it. You let it reveal itself fully. You allow your response to come from the version of you that no longer needs to prove, chase, or secure. And in that space, something becomes clear. Receiving isn't something you wait for, it's something you allow. And as that realization settles into the way you move through your external world, you begin to sense another layer forming beneath it. Something quieter, more intentional, inviting you to anchor this shift in a way that lasts beyond the moment. There's a moment where you stop thinking about the shift and begin to meet it with your body. April 1st and 2nd don't feel like ordinary days. They carry a kind of quiet threshold, like standing at the edge of something you've already crossed internally, and now you're letting it become real in a way you can feel, not just understand. You dim the lights, or maybe the room is already soft with early morning stillness. The air feels different when you slow down enough to notice it. Your breath becomes the first anchor, steady, intentional, something you can return to without effort. And then, something simple. A hand over your chest, a pause before words, a sentence spoken low, almost like it's meant just for you. This is where ritual begins to reveal its true shape, not as performance, not as something you do to change your life overnight, but as a language, one your body understands long before your mind tries to explain it. Every small movement, every quiet intention becomes a signal. Something has shifted, and you are choosing to meet it fully. You're no longer just realizing, you're participating. And in that stillness, the change settles deeper, preparing you for what it means to live from it. And when everything settles, it doesn't feel like you've become someone new. It feels like you've stopped moving away from yourself. There's a quiet clarity in that, one that doesn't need to be explained or proven. You notice it in the way you sit with your own thoughts now, without rushing to fix them. In the way your energy stays with you instead of reaching outward for confirmation. Something has returned to its place, not loudly, not all at once, but steadily enough that you can feel the difference between who you were trying to be and who you are when you stop trying. Scorpio, this is where it becomes real. You no longer measure yourself by how much you can hold, how much you can endure, how much you can make work. There's a different kind of strength here, quieter, more grounded. The kind that comes from knowing you don't need to prove your worth to keep something in your life. And in that knowing, something else opens. A sense that what's meant for you doesn't require you to shrink, to wait, or to question yourself into exhaustion. It meets you where you stand now, clear, present, and fully available to receive. So the question gently shifts, not, am I ready someday? But, are you willing to stop delaying what already feels true? You can feel the answer in your body before your mind reaches for it. And maybe that's enough. If this feels like your moment, let it be real. I rise into my truth. And if this message found something honest in you, you're always welcome to stay connected here. Like, share, or subscribe, and keep walking this path with me, one quiet realization at a time.